right, so follow up on that paint job. And this is after me hacking at it to get all those decals off. Actually held out pretty good. The self-etching primer, after we cleaned and sanitized it with acetone, adheres to the aluminum, and it did a really freaking good job of doing it. It doesn't, you can see the scratches down to the primer getting into it. Some of these came out a little hairy, but with prep work we're gonna get those out. But kind of went at it here, got most of them off fairly clean. I mean, I was taking them off because some of these people I don't represent anymore, and then obviously I had to re-drill the rivets when I had to reset the frame, which is part of the reason why I gutted the entire thing. But the paint itself did a pretty good job of standing out and holding out. Actually, I think it did a fantastic job. The only parts where it did fail was parts where I didn't prep it right, and that's right here where the water line was and all these million rivets were, where I really just did not want to deal with the headache of stripping all as hard as this paint was to get off. I just didn't want to do it. So I paid for that, because that's where it started flaking off here, all the way down, and then here again where you can clearly see the blue paint, where I just scuffed it up thinking that was enough for the paint to adhere to. It did not. That's the only place it failed, though. Everywhere else, though, it stuck to. And it's not like I was nice to this boat. I did things to it. I mean, I just clearly destroyed a buoy the other day. Like, while I was trying to get the boat on step, it was too high. I didn't see the buoy. I totally just destroyed it. You can see it where I marked it here or marked it there. I didn't even take the paint off there. Just scuffed it. I could likely just buff it out with some wax. This 2-part acrylic paint, I can't find it anywhere else. I mean, Krylon made it. It was fantastic. Krylon Automotive 2-part acrylic paint. It was the best stuff ever. I don't even know where you could find it now. But the pulling decals off was terrible. Like, I had my kids do it. It took them days. They gave up. Over here, I took a scraper and an oscillating tool and very, very carefully went up and got a lot of it off. Just got to be very careful with the oscillating tool. But you got down to the paint, got down to parts of the primer. The primer stuck. That self-etching primer did it. It held pretty good. That was a pretty good combo. So, I mean, this was a year in review. And I'm sorry I'm giving it to you after it's all really screwed up, but if you can, like, look at parts of it where I clearly did nothing to it. I mean, it's got little water spots, but we cleaned that off with, water spot remover and, clean it all up. It looked really nice. Showroom nice. This time I'm going to go all out and take the rest of these decals off. And then, prep this stuff the right way so I don't have this problem anymore. And then it should be good. I should be able just to do the sides. I don't think I have to be really inherently worried about the back. Nothing really bad happened to the back. I'm not going to repaint the back. I got too much crap attached to the back to repaint it. Jasco paint and epoxy remover. Something that can remove epoxy. This stuff looks like death. It looks like if it put it on your skin, it just melted right off. So I'm hoping because it looks like absolute death that it performs the way it looks. Alright, so we're going to take the last little bit of these decals off with the oscillating tool, and then we're going to get to town on applying this Jasco epoxy paint death remover, and we're going to go ahead and just give it a nice quick lather. The thicker the coat that you get on the actual paint, the more it penetrates. You can see it. When it starts to physically bubble up like that, it's ready to come off. You can just get a regular scraper blade and just take it off. And by scraper blade, I mean like a plastic scraper or something that's fairly brisk that won't actually damage the metal when you're taking this paint off. And just move my trucks out of the way so none of this crap gets on my trucks. And then we will just spray some of this. So this stuff is actually really tough. It kind of makes me sad it's no longer in stores. So this time around, I'm using a pressure washer. I'm not doing that scraper blade crap again. It is too much work. It is a giant waste of time. Like, no. And this is like the cheap Ryobi pressure washer. If you had a real one, it probably would do a lot better. But yeah, you gotta use what you can use. Alright, so you can see where I applied the paintbrush. You can literally see the brush strokes and the thickness of the stuff and how thick it was versus how thin it was applied. And what happened is the brush just didn't apply it very well. We'll be going over it with a roller. Every time you hit it with a wire wheel or you hit it with wet sanding, it takes a layer of the aluminum off. Overall, it residually weakens the integrity of the hull. Alright, so I got a lot of it off. with a combination of the angle grinder with a soft wire wheel and that thing, and then a drill with a soft wire wheel. The soft wire, like the thin wires, not the thick wire brushes, those will like rip right through your hull. I swear they will. They're death. These are like semi-death, but they worked. Filled up the Jasco stuff back in here, and I'm gonna roll it. That way it's an even coat and you don't have those brush lines. I really feel with that even coat, all this crap will come off. So let's do that, and I think we'll have a really nice prepped hull ready to go. Okay, so finally a way to get all of it off without completely screwing the hull up with a wire wheel any more than I have to. In fact, I think you could probably just do it this way. If you had a strong enough paint remover, you just applied it, sprayed it off, applied it, sprayed it off, and kept doing that. Then little by little, you get all of it off. Second roll, and then you can even do it. I think I did a third roll and got it really clean. I mean, you can just see it. Little by little, it just comes right off. And if you have a better pressure washer, it's probably magic. It makes me want to go buy a new one. Alright, so this worked out pretty well. That looks about what it looked like the last time I painted it. Got most of it out. There's some residual marks and smidges and imperfections. Like I literally layer it and go at it forever, but it's good. It's prepped. You know, I wire brushed. So it's a perfect texture. I don't even need to wet sand it. I don't see any gross markings or anything that's gonna like really inherently ruin the finish. I just sprayed this end off. Got the tape going. So if you watch my other painting videos, I etch wash the hull, which is more or less doing what self-etching primer would do, only self-etching primer traps the contaminants inside the paint. If you etch wash it before that and then primer it, then there's just no contaminants to eventually screw the paint up over time. Then I tried this deal. I went to sand it. This Total Boat primer is really tough, robust stuff. It really is ridiculous. It doesn't chip whenever anything hits it, like you hit it really hard. The bad thing is when you roll it, it orange peels no matter how much thinner or how much anything you put in it, it's still orange peels. And you can sand it forever and then you have to deal with that whole part. I'm tired of that whole thing. So what I did is just, I sanded it down to a decent level where it wasn't gonna terribly look that bad, and then I rattle canned it. So it was really, really good primer and rattle canned. And this is the extent of what I'm doing, because really I was not nice to my boat. I run into stuff. Like I just want it to not look like how it did, so terribly bad that somebody thinks it was vandalized, and it did not come out perfect. To get it really, really shiny and perfect without any splotches, I'd have to really wet sand it forever. And sanding and painting, if you haven't noticed, is my least favorite thing to do ever. This is Krylon spray paint from Lowe's. I forget what it's actually called, but it was the same color as my truck, and I'm really just trying to get the boat to slightly match the truck. And I'll have a little can. Later on, if I really want to redo it, I'll just do the same process without having to use a wire wheel. I'll just douse it with chemicals and spray it off again. Pretty easy to do it. But that primer I put on is going to be a real mess, so I try to get it off. So I'll probably wait for a while. I just need it like decent looking. I don't care. I love this boat. I get pretty in there with this boat. This is an Alaskan hull. It's one of the thicker, tougher hulls that are made for a smaller boat like this, and I can get right close to the shore, to the edge line, and get beaten up by the waves and deal with all the crap that happens on this lake at any given time and slay it. My advice on these aluminum boats, honestly, is just to rattle can it. It is super easy, comes out really nice, and if you want to change it in 6 months to a year, you can change it. That's awesome in and of itself. Tight lines, everyone. Peace.